Good morning. Going to call the October 1st Indianapolis Regional Transportation Council Technical Committee to order. Anna Gremling with the Indianapolis IMPO. We're going to go around the room and do introductions. To my left.
Kristen Sanchez, IMPO.
Annie Dixon, IMPO. Cole Jackson, IMPO.
And who I'm IMPO.
Greg Bud, HFTV.
Scott Warren, GI Consultants.
Doug Holman, Lockfield Group.
Kate Sale, EMCS. Stacy Connor, BS Engineering.
Bill Beta, Engineers. Mark Brett, Crossroads Engineers.
Sandra Flama did that.
Kia Gillette with HTV.
Tim Cochran, City of East
Stephen Whitestown, Brad Meriwether, Town of Zionsville.
Right Brown, Town of Fordsville. Nick Barr, Boone County.
Justin Schnack, Morgan County.
Jim Melvin, City of Noblesville. Tab Becky, City of Fishers.
Lynn Marlowe, City of Greenfield.
John Papps, Town of Brownsburg. Don Ayers, Hendricks County.
Sandra Billby, Indigo.
Scott Singleton, Town of Plainfield.
Renee Raffalo, Lawrence.
Seymour Avon.
Amanda Meyer, Serta.
Paul Peone, City of Greenwood.
Mark St. John, City of Indianapolis.
Great. Welcome, everyone. First item on the agenda is the approval and adoption of the meeting minutes dated August 6th. Has everybody approved? Motion to approve by Renee.
Second.
So the second by Shri. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed likewise. Motion carries. Agenda item number 3 is the TIP amendments. We have Cole Jackson up to talk about, several items for the TIP, including the amendments.
Hello. Can you guys actually hear me? Just a minute.
Okay, hello everyone. This might be the first time you can actually hear me, so I will introduce myself. My name is Cole Jackson, and I work on the Transportation Improvement Program that we normally refer to as the TIP. Some items for today are Q4 TIP amendments. This is for the 26 to 29 TIP. The 26 to 29 TIP is the formerly approved TIP. We received all the approvals for this document between the last meeting and this meeting. So it is now our official TIP. It is fully approved. Just a note on what you're looking at in your agenda packet. Exempt amendments are regular amendments. These are amendments that do not require any sort of significant impact on air quality, and they go through the regular amendment process. Non-exempt amendments are usually significant for air quality or potentially significant for air quality. Those require additional approvals. So just when you're looking at the packet, you see the difference between exempt and non-exempt amendments. That is the difference between those types of projects. Does anyone have questions on the amendments, or I can move into talking about the culvert projects?
Cole, do you want me to just go ahead and approve?
Yes,
those? Okay. So Cole presented the TIP amendments. That's under Resolution 25 IMPO 018. If there are no questions, this is an item for your approval. A motion by John Ayers. Second by Renee. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion carries.
Okay, the culvert project is coming up soon, so it's going to open on Monday, so 10/6, and it closes on Black Friday. This application packet for the culvert projects is available on our website now. So you can review that, all this information is in there. But if you have questions, let us know. We're also happy to walk you through my TIP. So if you have any problem with inputting information in my TIP, or learning how to use my TIP, or making an account, you can email customer I, call customer I, and we will help you out through that. But here are some of the key numbers for the upcoming culvert projects. Federal Funds Exchange, or FFE projects, those are going to be going to state fiscal year lending in 2029. Federal funds projects are going to go to state fiscal year lending in 2031. We have about $72 million available, which is a little bit more than what I told you last time. That's broken down into FFP9, FFP STPG, FFP HSIP, and FFP CVAC. Again, those are all federal fund exchange projects. They're following the federal fund exchange process. The last one is about $10 million in federal TA, or transportation alternatives funding. That funding is federal, so it is going to be running in 2031, and it has to follow the federal process. We also have a lot less flexibility in that project type, so it is important that it does go running in 2031. This is also going to be the first copper projects in which we are using the new allocation goals. So maybe like a year and a half ago, we all approved the new MTP that included new allocation goals for our funding. The intersection improvements is the new biggest change. That is a new category that we didn't have previously. It's also the largest category, so that's just something to keep in mind when you're putting together an application. There's more information about the allocation goals and all the funding sources in the application packet, and if you have questions, just let us know. Additionally, ADA for in Title VI requirements have changed. So you need to be submitting ADA and Title VI information to IMPO every year by October 1st, which is today. So if you're not submitting your information to IMPO, you need to be doing that today. Here's some information about what is required. But this is a new requirement from IMPO because they are subrecipients of federal funds, and because we are subrecipients of IMPO, we are also required to make sure that you are compliant with ADA and Title VI, or we risk our funding. So this needs to go in by October 1st of every year. Additionally, you need to be submitting it to us with the copper projects. So you're either able to email that to us at the info email or my email. We also reply, or you can upload it to my tip. But if you are applying in our copper projects, please submit your Title VI and ADA information so that we are compliant of subrecipients of IMPO. We also have a training available on ADA and PROAC. So we had this a couple of weeks ago. It's about an hour and a half long, covers ADA requirements and PROAC requirements. Here's a QR code if you'd like to see that. But if you want to look it up later, it is under resources and then LPA resources. It's the first item there. Couple more things. It's almost the most exciting time of the year, which is our annual report. If you have any project photos that you completed under construction or completed projects from last year that had IMPO funding, we would love photos of that. You are welcome to send to us and IMPO.gov. You can also email them to me or Kristen or like anyone else on staff, and we will get those sorted for you. This is like the first of probably some reminders we'll send you about this, so we love your photos. Lastly, just want to give you some information about amendments that are going to be coming up at the next meeting. Again, these are not on this agenda, will be potentially on the next agenda. But every copper project we set aside 5% of our funds for potential cost increase requests. This is only for federal fund exchange projects and do not have any opportunities to increase funding for federally funded projects. At the 2027 copper projects, which is about a year and a half ago, we set aside $2.5 billion for cost increase requests. Of that, they must be for services, just government design. They have to come in October. 18 months after the initial policy committee award, and we cannot ask for more than 10% of the initial award. So any remaining funds from that will go into the upcoming copper projects. So at the next meeting, we will potentially see some requests for additional FFP money. I just want to make sure we're aware of what you're looking at when that comes up. Even if we do not receive the request or we have additional funding left over, that will go into the next copper projects that's coming up. Any questions on copper projects?
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned that there was information about the ADA and Title VI. We're not getting anything back from IMPO. What is it you're looking for on the application that shows that we've submitted it, or like what is it you need in the application?
Yeah, if you could just submit your ADA transition plan and then like your Title VI policy and just upload
Submit
it.
the plan to you with the application.
Yes, that's all I need, yeah. We just need to do a show that we check that you have it.
Okay.
Anything else?
I do want to echo just on the annual report consultants. Sometimes I know when I go to these ribbon cuttings, I see your photographers, your drone flying around. We would really love to highlight several of the projects that open this year. So if it's not the LPAs that have ownership on some of those, if you want to share those as well, we'd be happy to highlight those. other questions regarding call for projects, transition plans, photos, a lot of stuff coming up? Okay. The next item for your approval is the Human Coordinated Services Plan. Annie's here to talk about that.
Good morning, everyone. Sounds a little bit better. I'm here to talk to you today about the coordinated plan. This is an item that we are seeking approval on today. Looking for my mouse. I want to give you a little bit of background. We've covered this in prior meetings, but this plan is a plan that is linked to Section 5310 funding. That is funding from transportation and human services that are providing services for people with disabilities as well as seniors. Projects that are selected or applied to that program managed by INDIGO and NDOT have to cite a goal in this plan that their funding application supports. These goals have been developed by the public, local stakeholders, public transportation providers, human services providers, and other kind of relevant agencies. Here's the timeline for how we got here. We kicked off this project in April. We hosted several stakeholder meetings to get input. We gave an update to this committee in August. We had a public comment period that is still technically open until October 3rd. I have not received any public comments yet, and we are seeking approval today from this body as well as the policy committee later this month. I won't go over everything in the plan. This was something that I found interesting that I thought I would share with you. Part of the requirements include understanding needs and gaps in service as well as identifying goals to address those gaps. Based on public feedback and stakeholder feedback, some of the most critical gaps for these transportation providers and human services providers are not enough funding, not enough days or hours of service for their clients, not enough service to all demanded locations, and the list goes on. There on the left. On the right, we asked our stakeholders to tell us what seems most feasible to address. You can see a little bit of flipping here where they think, the lack of coordination between human services and public transit is something that's most feasible for them to address with their current resources, whereas not enough funding is on the bottom of feasibility for them. So I thought that was interesting. Here are the first set of goals that are included in the plan. Once again, these are the goals that the transportation providers are submitting with their funding applications saying our funding will address these goals. They're broken into 4 different categories with some sub-goals. So I'll go over the overarching ones. The first is maintaining and improving existing services. We know that funding is kind of changing. And so this is just meant to address if a provider needs vehicles or other things. This is to maintain their existing service for their clients. There are sub-strategies underneath here. These are all in the plan as well. Second major goal is to coordinate programs and services. Seems pretty obvious, it's a coordinated plan. This is focused on improving efficiencies for better service delivery. Last two are to complement public transportation. This plan is meant to address both public transportation providers as well as human services providers as well. And then the final one is educating decision makers. Are there any questions I can answer on this? This is an item for approval.
It's an item for approval. Annie, remind me again, what is the update cycle of the coordinated services plan? Once every 4?
Yes, update cycles every 4 years. So this plan was last approved in 2021.
Thank you.
Make the motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion by Renee. Second by Mark in the corner. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Jen is covering for the public involvement participation plan. Danielle is struggling with, I would say, asthma and illness.
All right, thank you. Yes, so Danielle led the update of our public involvement plan. She is struggling a little bit right now with allergies and things. So I just wanted to hit the highlights. So this is in your packets. I don't have any slides. I'm just looking at the memo that is in your packets. And we do update this. We take a look at it every couple years, see if it's still relevant. We try to update it every 4 at least. And some of the changes since the last public improvement plan, we did have a full presentation at the last tech and policy round of meetings in August. But some of those things that we are updating are, we're now hosting pre-hearings before the policy committee. So the Monday before policy, we're having two virtual meetings, one at noon, one at, I believe, 6 p.m. So that if somebody can't make the 9 a.m. meeting on Wednesday, but they want to know about what's in the packet or what's on the agenda, or they have any questions that they want to put forward for us to carry into the meeting and policy, we're trying to make it more accessible to the public to be able to give feedback on things like that. We've also aligned the comment periods in this draft for the MTP and the TIP. The TIP had a 10-day comment period, the MTP had a 15-day comment period. It just made public noticing a bit difficult, so we've aligned both of those to be 10-day comment periods so that we can advertise them both at the same time and have them both open at the same time. We've updated the data in the language access plan. That was, I believe, 2021 data, so we have just updated the data that was in that so we have a better idea of what's happening in the region. We removed Indianapolis Recorder as a paper of record in the PIP, so we do still have the Indy Star as our paper of record. The reason for that is Indy Recorder is, I believe, a weekly publication, and so it was much harder for us to try to get notices into that paper in a timely fashion when we had meetings coming up or comment periods opening and things like that. So we will still be submitting things to the Indianapolis Recorder to include in that paper as much as we possibly can, but we're taking them out as a paper of record. And then we updated our program of project statement. This was a statement between Indianapolis MPO, the Indianapolis MPO, Indigo, and CERTA had kind of this collective program of project statement in our PIP, so we updated that to be a little bit more clear about what that applies to. We also have created a engagement toolkit. This is also in your packet, but separate to the PIP. It is going to be kind of a living document that we'll just update as necessary, and it just has a bunch of strategies that we can use to engage the public, and it's just a bit more flexible for us to be able to refer to. So that is linked from the PIP. There is a link in the PIP to the engagement toolkit, but that engagement toolkit is just included for your reference, but not your approval. We did have several steering committees as part of updating this PIP, and the public involvement plan comment period is August 22nd through October 6th, so it is still open for a few more days. To my knowledge, we have not received any comments on that so far, but we will pass those along at policy if we do receive any of those comments by the time the public comment period closes. And then we will be having a couple of virtual pre-public hearings on October 13th, again in advance of the policy committee meeting. So this is an item for your approval, and I will answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Jen? So we've made some changes, I think a lot just to streamline and make it a little bit easier on the administrative side of things.
Yeah, the public involvement plan is really just our way of keeping us accountable when it comes to engaging the public and making sure that we're being transparent and collecting information as needed.
And it's the bare minimum.
Yeah, it's the bare minimum, we can always go about that, so.
Motion to approve by Renee.
I'll second.
Who was the second on that? Shree. Okay. I have a motion by Renee, a second by Shree. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, likewise. Motion carries. Tip scoring updates online. We're gonna bring Jason up from High Street virtually. For those of you that don't know, we are in the process of reviewing the project scoring criteria. Right, this call that we're opening next week, the end of the week, right, is using all the old criteria, but we're looking at updating and making some changes for next year. We don't take this process lightly. So we have essentially several members of this committee is helping us guide the changing of potential the scoring criteria. criteria. Jason's gonna update you on where we are with that project. I do want to thank all of you that have been involved, or because when we sit down, we're sitting down for two hours minimum, starting to comb through how a bridge is selected, the bridge criteria, like the various types of projects. So really do appreciate those of you who are taking the time to help us look at and reevaluate those. So Jason, can we do a sound check?
All right, can you hear me?
I can hear you. The floor
All
is yours.
right, very good. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm here to provide a status update on our current efforts, kind of where we've been, where we are, and where we're heading, and some of the main themes that we've been hearing along the way, and how we're integrating the feedback that we're hearing from the steering committee into the development process. All right, so we've really got underway over this past summer, and we've been busy. So we've had a total of 3 steering committee meetings so far. And through those meetings, we started off by identifying the performance areas that have the highest priority among the steering committee members. And following that, we conducted an assessment of the current criteria and how well those criteria align with the Circle 2050 goals. And from that, we got a sense of, what is important to the IMPO stakeholders, that local community perspective. And then we made that connection to what's important at the regional level and how we can leverage the criteria to make progress towards regional goals while maintaining that local perspective. So both of those touch points culminated into a 2-part deep dive workshop where we went systematically through each TIP program, STPG, CMAQ, HSIP, and TAP. And we looked at each criteria within those programs and the criteria that are associated with each project type within STPG and TAP. And from that, we received a lot of really good feedback. And what we really heard is emphasis on cost effectiveness, so bang for the buck. I think came top of mind, and some other themes that I'll talk about in a little bit. So what we're doing now is following all of that kind of deep dive. We kind of started at the 30,000 foot. We got down to the 10,000 foot. We got into the weeds a little bit. Now we're kind of pulling back and taking stock of what we talked about and how we move forward. So we're synthesizing the outcomes from the steering committee meetings to date. We're developing a revised set of evaluation criteria for the next phase of work. And then we're going to get started in developing the methodologies that underpin the criteria that we're moving forward with and move into testing. So future work down the line as we head into late fall, winter, and the new year, we'll actually be testing the revised set of criteria using past project data to really, the proof is in the pudding. We have a sense of how the criteria should perform, and we want to test to be able to validate that and make sure that everyone understands the criteria. There's a lot of transparency there, and then everyone feels comfortable and can understand it through that testing process and the outcomes from there. And then after that, we'll just confirm the changes that will move forward. I think you all will be a part of that. So just a note there for future presentations. And then we'll be helping IMPO staff with integrating updates into the MyTip system. And finally, we'll be creating a guidebook that details all of the revised criteria, any changes to the from the current TIP process, so that anyone would be able to pick up that guidebook and understand IMPO's TIP project selection process. So going back to kind of the main themes that we've heard from the steering committee members. There was very early on, it was clear to us that steering committee members wanted to understand more about cross-program performance. So how does the total TIP project package perform and make progress towards long-range transportation goals? And so in order to address that, we introduced what we're calling cross-program criteria. So these are meant to be kind of, I call them the four core. These are criteria that are most aligned with the Circle 2050 goal themes, that they are the top priority, from the steering committee, based on steering committee member feedback, and they can give a really good overall picture of how the portfolio of TIP projects is performing overall. We heard that real keen interest on cost effectiveness, so bang for the buck, making sure that the projects move forward are making the most progress, providing the most benefit for the dollars that are spent. That was a clear consideration that's come up throughout our conversations. And so what we're doing is we're layering in new tailored benefit cost ratio criteria really throughout, but really focusing in the STBG program. We also heard a lot about thinking about the future and how can we anticipate future needs now through the TIP project selection process. And so we're still, refining some of the criteria around this, but thinking about future demand, thinking about land use changes, thinking about what if a bridge became compromised and could no longer handle certain weight capacities. What does that mean in terms of impact to the community? What does the VMT detour look like for that bridge? So thinking about those impacts should a project or a bridge not be rehabilitated, what are the consequences? Finally, another area that came up both from the steering committee members, but also IMPO staff is there's a lot of existing data plans and resources that are available that can underpin the criteria that we're talking about. And so we've done a data scan of those resources that IMPO has through their data hub. And that's an exciting opportunity to leverage the work that you all are doing within this process. So finally, just looking kind of where we're heading over the next couple months here, we've got another steering committee meeting coming up late October. We'll provide an overview of those refined criteria to be carried forward that we've been discussing, and we'll start talking about the methodologies and data that we'll use to underpin those criteria, and start to talk about what the testing process looks like and what steering committee members can expect then. In November, we'll have another in-person steering committee meeting. There we'll have some preliminary testing results to get in front of them, kick the tires on the criteria sets for the programs and the project types. And we want to use that really to just make sure that everyone's comfortable with any potential changes and make sure that everyone understands the criteria and how they work together and what to expect in terms of the project application and scoring process. And then in December, we'll come back to you and provide you with another update on the work that will have been completed over the next several months here. So that's a quick project status update from me. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Jason, Kristen, myself? Again, we don't take these changes lightly. testing. Sometimes there's unintended consequences, make a small tweak somewhere has larger impacts than we would have anticipated or different impacts. So we're really starting to enter some of that. Looking to make changes. Obviously, we'll be back in December with another update on what will change or what we're looking at changing, what we're finding, those types of things, so.
Hey, Anna, just curious, who all are in the steering committee?
Who are the steering committee members? Okay, from the top of my head,
Just general.
Mark St. John, I see in the corner there. Gary Poole, Boone County's been represented.
Mike's been attending some of them because I can't remember.
Yeah, so Mike's been there. Ryan Wilhite, Wes Field, Jonathan Nail. Help me out if who am I missing? Ryan Crum, Ryan Cannon. Those are all
Brad Davis.
Brad Davis, Scott County.
We also have HNTV as our on-call cost estimating review team, and Matt Miller is a part of the subcommittee as well, just because of his involvement in the process.
That back-end application check review, yep, so he's been involved as. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but we did try. Oh, there, can you make it bigger? We did try to get a cross-section, so right, you'll see obviously large city, small city, transit, county, tried to get that full cross-representation of those that are involved. And it's been some in-depth conversation, as you can imagine. I don't think any meeting has really gone, at least in the in-person meetings, less than 2 hours and 15 minutes, and right, it's just a lot to go through. So looking forward to that, right, and there's a couple of unknown factors. The current transportation bill expires, right, September 30th of next year. We don't know what that's going to look like. I mean, I would argue, oh, like, I've been doing this for a long time, and it's, you know, typically been 4 categories, but then the last bill added 2 more categories, you know, two new funding categories. So the other piece of this is fiscal year 2030. I don't know yet if we will be in the INDOT exchange agreement or not. So there's just a couple of unknowns at this time on kind of what that looks like for fiscal year 30. So, okay. Jason, thank you for the update.
All right. Thanks for having me, everyone.
Take care. Okay, next item to update, for those of you that have not been following, INDOT has just recently reviewed or released some additional documents for their Propel study. I have Kia Gillette and Sandra Flume here from INDOT to talk about the Propel study.
Good morning, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Thank you, Annie. Fantastic.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thanks for letting us come and present to you today on Propel Indy. We're excited to give you an update. If you're not aware of Propel Indy, it is a planning and environment linkage study, and it is being conducted in accordance with 23 CFR 450. And what that does is it links the planning process with the National Environmental Policy Act review process. So we're linking planning with NEPA. Propel Indy is a collaborative effort to reimagine the future of I-65 and I-70 within I-465. Over the last 2 years, Central Indiana residents, commuters, businesses, and neighborhoods have shared their ideas, insights, concerns, and other things for the future of these interstates. Pro-Pelendi study area includes approximately 26 miles on 65 and 70 within the 465 list. And we have broken up the study area into 4 different spokes. These spokes are simply an organizational tool. They don't represent projects or priorities. So we do have the 65 spoke on the northwest side of town in the red-orange color. The downtown spoke, which is in pieces excluding that North Split project that was completed in the downtown area in blue. 70 West spoke on the west side of town in yellow, and 70 East in green. The I-65 Safety and Efficiency Project in the southeast side of town is excluded from our study area. The study launched in the spring of 2023, and since that time, we have been doing a number of things. We have made a concerted effort to engage with the public. The study team has attended over 130 events, and we've received over 1,600 comments from people that use, live, or work near the interstates. Now, this feedback that we've received, along with our team's collection and analysis of data along the interstates, has helped us to identify the transportation needs along these corridors. And there are 4 main needs that we identified. Number 1, we have aging bridge and pavement infrastructure. Number 2, roadway mobility. Number 3, roadway safety. And number 4, there are limited neighborhood and multimodal connections near the interstates. So the purpose of Pro-Pelendi is to identify potential solutions to address these needs. In December of last year, we released a report called the Universe of Concepts report. And this included a wide range of potential solutions that could be applied along the interstates to address the needs. We had 24 concepts in that report. We eliminated 10 of them, and 14 concepts moved forward for further consideration. And this brings us to where we are now. We are at step 4 in our study process, and that is the release of the alternatives, identification, and screening report. It's a draft report right now. It's out for public comment. It will be finalized and published after we receive public comment and have a chance to digest that information. So in addition to alternatives and in response to public feedback, this report also introduces neighborhood and connectivity planning principles to guide the future interstate projects toward better integration with surrounding communities. These principles emphasize safer and more accessible walking, biking, and other connections across and near the interstates. Now, our urban planners evaluated each of the study scopes to identify ways to potentially add, improve, or enhance connectivity and placemaking at each of the location's needs. And you can find this, each of our spoke chapters includes a map and different connectivity and placemaking opportunities that could be paired with a number of different alternatives in the report. Now we'll walk through the primary focus of the report, the identification and evaluation of alternatives. Planning level alternatives were developed using the solutions identified in that Universe of Concepts report from the study's last phase. The study team considered a number of things when they were identifying these alternatives, but there were 3 key questions. The first, where should concepts be placed along the study corridor? Why should this concept be used? Does it address a specific need? And how should these concepts be combined to form alternatives that address the location's needs? Now, if you've had a chance to look at the report, you may be surprised about how long and how technical the report is. And it's taken us a little while to get to this point. The reason being is we spent a lot of time looking at these alternatives and building them, trying to make sure that they actually worked. Nevertheless, these are still planning level alternatives. They are going to require further design and analysis if any of them make it to the project phase. Each alternative was then evaluated based on several factors. First, purpose and need. Does the alternative address the location's needs? Second, environmental impacts. What are the natural, cultural, and community impacts for the alternatives? Cost estimates. What is the construction and program cost, as well as the operations and maintenance costs, which do differ among alternatives? Constructability. How long would it take to construct an alternative, and what is the relative difficulty of constructing that alternative? And finally, community goals. Does the alternative meet the goals, the community goals that were identified for the study? And these community goals are based on the 4 study pillars: quality of life and livability, economic growth and development, transportation and mobility, and transportation for all. Up to 7 planning level alternatives were developed for each scope, and they range from basic reconstruction and replacement to more transformative redesigns. Now, alternatives that meet the study's purpose and need are considered potentially reasonable and will be carried forward unless they don't have strong relative benefits or their impacts are disproportionately higher than others. Those alternatives have been eliminated from further consideration. So this slide shows the primary alternatives that were looked at for most of the scopes. And I'll walk through these quickly, but let's start with the no-build alternative. The no-build alternative is included in this Pell study and in NEPA. It is a requirement. It's important to note that it says no build, but it really does include preventative maintenance activities. The rebuild with modern design and materials focuses on repairing and replacing the aging infrastructure, like the bridges and pavement. But it does not change how the interstate functions. We used it as a kind of means to compare what would the basic replacement be compared to some of the more transformative alternatives. Rebuild with modern design materials plus. This builds on the basic rebuild by adding small but meaningful improvements that would improve safety or traffic flow. You can kind of think of this one as a smart repair. It keeps a similar footprint, but does some small things to make it work better. Added travel lanes. This would add a new lane in each direction where congestion is already occurring or is expected to get worse in the future. It is designed to reduce congestion and improve travel times, especially in busy areas. Dynamic shoulder lanes. This would use the median shoulder in the center as a travel lane during rush hour, giving drivers extra capacity when it's needed the most. It's flexible, it's a little bit more space efficient than just adding travel lanes. The reversible lane. This would add a lane that changes direction. So be in the median, it would change direction depending on traffic flow. So leading into downtown in the morning and then out of downtown in the evening. And it's really ideal in areas where traffic is heavily one-sided during certain times of the day. The recessed interstate, this would lower the highway below the street level. This design would improve sightlines, walkability, and community access while keeping traffic flowing. And it can be paired with other upgrades like an added travel lane to improve safety and operations. And finally, the viaduct. The viaduct would actually raise the interstate even higher than where it may be elevated today. So up to 65 feet in some locations. This would create a brighter, more visible open space underneath, which could allow for natural light and green space and pedestrian-friendly areas underneath the infrastructure. So the report walks through each of the study's scopes. Due to the complexity of the downtown spoke, we broke that into 3 separate pieces, and that made it easier for us to compare alternatives in those areas. So I'll walk through them quickly. The 65 spoke extends from I-465 and 65 on the northwest part of town, all the way to 21st Street or about Fall Creek. 7 different alternatives were identified for this spoke, including addressing areas along 38th Street and I-65. That was a popular thing that we heard about. The 65 downtown spoke, that is from 21st Street or Fall Creek to the west end of the North Split interchange. 5 alternatives were developed for this spoke, including potential improvements at West Street and recessed and viaduct options. The 6570 downtown spoke, which extends south from Washington Street to include the South Split and slightly west on I-70 to the East Street Bridge. 3 alternatives were developed in this location, including improvements to the South Split. The 70 downtown spoke, which extends from the White River to the South Split. 6 alternatives were identified for this spoke, including both recessed and viaduct alternatives to improve connectivity. The 70 west spoke, which extends from 465 and I-70 on the west side of town to just west of the West Street interchange. 5 alternatives were developed for this spoke, including the use of dynamic shoulder lanes to improve mobility. And finally, the 70 east spoke, which extends from the east end of the North Split project to the 465-70 interchange on the east side. And 4 alternatives were developed for this spoke, including potential improvements to the Keystone and Rural Street interchange. As a result of the evaluation process, each alternative was either recommended to be carried forward for further consideration, or it was recommended to be eliminated. Alternatives carried forward are considered potentially reasonable. Those alternatives will likely be considered in future studies, but still require some further analysis. And they are represented with the green thumbs up sign on the slide. Eliminated alternatives are considered unreasonable. They will not likely be evaluated further in the study and don't warrant further consideration in NEPA or project development. They are represented by the red thumbs down. And finally, there are alternatives carried forward with construction or operations and maintenance costs beyond what NDOT would traditionally fund. The funding difference would need to be made up to make these alternatives reasonable alternatives to move forward in the future. And these are represented with the yellow dollar sign. So what's next for us? Propel-ND will result in a wide range of reasonable alternatives for NDOT to consider for future projects. Alternatives carried forward from the study will require further analysis to determine if they are reasonable solutions for the area's transportation needs. It's important to note that no decisions have been made about the future of I-65 and I-70 in Indianapolis. There are multiple factors, including the urgency of identified needs, particularly bridge and pavement condition, statewide priorities, and funding availability that will be considered when identifying future projects. And any future projects could happen 5, 10, 20 years into the future. I will add that Propel-ND's evaluation of the corridor did identify some locations with more immediate needs. For example, the bridge west of the North Split project from Alabama to Summit is one, and the pavement along I-70 from 465 to the South Split is another. This information is included in the Propel-ND existing transportation conditions report, which is available on the website. We are accepting public comments on the draft alternatives identification and screening report through October 5th. I will add, if you expect to send comments, you are working on them but may miss that deadline, please let us know and we'll watch for them and we won't cut you off at a hard date on October 5th. After public and agency review of the report, we will finalize it. We'll update it based on the information we receive and publish a final report on the website. And then the final step in Propel Indy is the study report, which will summarize all of the information and actions that we've done over the past couple of years, and that report will be posted to the website. And that's the end of our presentation. Are there any questions? I realize that was a lot of information and we are summarizing an even larger report, so.
Yeah, and we've had a couple of times this group come and present at various points of the project. So linking planning and NEPA together for the first time, really in central Indiana from an INDOT perspective.
Yeah, INDOT did work on Propel 31. So in Hamilton County and northward, but this is probably the first time in the Indianapolis area. Yes.
So all these spokes connect to North Split, which is causing mobility issues today, in my opinion. Is there any consideration for addressing those mobility issues that should have been fixed with North Split? Because otherwise we're investing all this money to push vehicles into a pinch point.
The report largely did not look at the North Split project, but does acknowledge that the North Split will be a bottleneck, particularly if you try to add capacity on some of the other spokes. So it's a system. So at some point, if you don't fix part of the system, something becomes a bottleneck there. So it's acknowledged in the report, but the report does not make suggestions for improving the North Split project.
Any other questions? It is a big report, but there is an executive summary. So, feel free to peruse that. Are you guys leaving immediately afterwards?
I can stick around if that would be helpful.
Okay. They may stick around for a few minutes. We're towards the end anyway. If you guys have questions that you don't want to ask from before, but would just want to pull them aside and ask, highly encourage it.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Kia. So next item on the agenda is the Safe Streets for All Update Safety Committee Inquiry. Andrea Miller is on vacation, but I do have her talking points. We will be convening the Safety Steering Committee as we have just recently signed our grant agreement for the Safe Streets and Roads for All update. This is going to include 5 meetings. All of them will be virtual. They will begin at the end of October, early November, and there will be 5 meetings. An invite to all tech committee members will be going out from the IMPO IMPO account. But she wanted me to give you all heads up on that. If you currently have a Safe Streets and Roads for All current grant application, you are required to serve on this committee for coordination purposes. So just a reminder, if you're one of those communities, I don't know who they are off the top of my head, but she did just want me to give everybody a heads up. Is there any questions regarding the Safe Streets and Roads for All as we start to kick off that planning process? Invoices did go out 3 weeks ago, maybe, for IMPO invoices, so you may have received them, your controller may have received them, depending on who over the years we have best been suggested to send those to, so just a reminder. Some communities pay those immediately. They are really fiscal year 26 dues. So some communities will hold on to the invoice, wait for the budget year, right, the calendar year 26 to open up before they pay them. If you have any questions or don't know where we sent the invoice, please feel free to let us know. We'll be happy to make sure you get a copy in your hands so those can get processed accordingly, according to your budget cycle and your timeline. So just a reminder, they do need payment by the first meeting, the first policy committee meeting in February, in order to be an eligible voting member and to participate in elections. So just a reminder there. Kristen, any comments on that? Oh,
Whole payment.
true. This Indianapolis City County is doing HVAC updates. So the IMPO offices will be going virtual for 3 weeks, starting October 22nd. And then whatever 3 weeks puts us at from there. So we will be 100% virtual. I will be stopping in to check mail and deposit checks and those types of things, but they're doing some updates to the offices and they need us to not be there. So, but that shouldn't really disrupt anything on your end. So just an FYI. I did want to let you know, I did mention this already, the transportation bill expires September 30th of next year. I've been actively involved on the national level at the Association of MPOs as they try to shape and influence the next transportation bill. We did just want to give you a couple of highlights. IMPO has partnered with the National League of Cities, and I'm gonna forget this. It's like the National Association of County Officials, NACDO, I think, National. So it's both a county organization, a city organization, and then IMPO have come together to form a transportation coalition, just so everybody's hopefully trying to pull in the same direction. Some of the NPO or the coalition's talking points or things that they are trying to push is more money through federal formulas and less money at the national level. So they want more money pushed to MPOs and less national grants, right? So just push that Safe Streets and Roads for All national funding through the pipeline and let us distribute it at the regional level is one of them. Increase in PL dollars. PL dollars is what we are funding those planning grants with. Of the over $1 billion budget, less than 1% goes to planning. If you were a corporation, you would not spend less than 1% in research and development on where you're going to spend your funds. So they're asking for an increase of that. Also looking to streamline the environmental process to get projects out quicker, faster. The elimination of what I call the use it or lose it clause, or the abilities for states to claw back that money, asking for a 3-year time period. If you know, that's one of the reasons we have executed the federal exchange contract, because we are held, while these are multi-year, typically in complex projects, we are required to spend our entire allocation to the penny every fiscal year. Different states handle it differently, but a lot of states are kind of going to that annual allocation or use it or lose it model. So we nationally are pushing against that. Also trying to change the 80-20 to decrease the amount of local match. I don't know if that is really plausible on the national level, but trying to change that percentage away from 80-20 and decrease the local amount. So those are just a couple of the highlights of some of the things that are happening on the national level. I will be going out next spring. We do anticipate the first draft of the new transportation bill to come out sometime in the next 60 to 90 days is what they're hearing on Capitol Hill. So just an FYI, and I will be actively reviewing and trying to get comments back nationally from our region on what makes sense or doesn't make sense. So just an FYI. Staff, any other comments, updates, reminders? We're exactly at 1 hour. I need a motion and a second to adjourn. Motion? Renee? Motion by Renee. Second?
Second.
Okay, Brad. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, likewise. Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned.